It is time to get out of pocket. I'm your host, Michael Davis, right here live on Boom Broadcasting. Guys, it has been quite some time. And of course, I appreciate you all. Hope you all had a fantastic Thanksgiving. We have a big show for you today because there's been breaking news throughout the weekend, especially over the last 24 hours. And I'm going to welcome in the host of Dugout Debrief, Chris DeLuca. I'm going to bring in the host of the Gridiron Address, Aaron Schneider. And we are going to talk about not one, but two of our college teams axing their head coaches. West Virginia fired their head coach. Shawn Clark is gone from Appalachian State, and we are going to cover that when they get on. Plus, I want to go ahead and announce one of our guests for tomorrow. Podcast Smitty, the host of Quick Hit, Shane Smith, he'll be on to talk not only Jordan Mason, but Christian McCaffrey as well, both headed to injured reserve for the San Francisco 49ers. That news broke about 30 minutes ago. So it has been a wild time here in the sports world. And we got to start off before Aaron gets in, before Chris gets in. We're going to wait and hold on that college football talk real quick to talk some Homer's Corner. Wayne saying, there goes my hero. There goes my hero. Guess what? We are going to talk about my hero, Tyler Hero, who I had the privilege to see this past week play in Charlotte when the Heat played the Hornets. Podcast Smitty, Matt Brown got the boat as well. He got the boot. I think he meant boot. He got the boot as well. Maybe he got a boat. Maybe his severance includes him getting a boat. Who knows? But it is absolutely wild. And Shane, I'm going to have you on tomorrow. Talk about these 49ers, talk about UNC as well. And yes, boot. Well, let's get our boots on the ground and let's do a little Homer's house. And I want to talk because people are blowing up my phone about the Cowboys winning back-to-back games. For the Cowboys winning their first home game in a long time, probably like back around week 17, week 18 of last year is when Dallas won their last home game. They beat the Giants 27-20 on Thanksgiving. And I want to tell you guys, this has been an abysmal Dallas Cowboys season. There is no bones about it. But let's look at what they have in front of them. Because yes, the Cowboys are 5-7. They are third place in the NFC East. They have back-to-back division wins over the Commanders and over the Giants. They have a lot of time to rest. I mean, they basically have a second bye week before they play the Cincinnati Bengals on a Monday night football game. Typically, Dallas will play a Sunday, a Thanksgiving, and turn around and play the next Thursday. So that is 3 games in a span of 10, 11 days? It's never a good recipe for Dallas when it comes to Thanksgiving. But to have a win over the division rival Washington Commanders, to have a win over the New York Giants, and then to have all this time until you have to prepare for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, who won't have as much time to prepare or rest. When you look at the Dallas Cowboys this year, look at all the injuries they've had. If you told me on any team, and this is part of what's going on with the San Francisco 49ers, if you told me that your quarterback out for the year, he's on IR. If you would tell me your wide receiver CeeDee Lamb would be, hurt a lot. If you told me Brandon Cooks wouldn't play for majority of the season, if you told me Jake Ferguson missed multiple games. So that's your starting quarterback. That's your top 2 wide receivers. That is your starting tight end. And then you look at that offensive line and you've seen Tyler Guyton miss. Your starting left tackle, your starting left guard, your starting right guard, your starting right tackle just is not playing his best right now. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball when Micah Parsons, he was gone for a month. That's your best defensive player. That's one of the best, if not the best defensive players in the league. DeMarcus Lawrence, his running mate, he's out. Sam Williams got hurt in the preseason. Marshawn Nealon, your second-round pick, got hurt. So this team's been playing with their 5th and 6th string defensive ends. You look at linebacker, Eric Kendricks, the quarterback of your defense, missed a couple games. You look at corner, Deron Bland just got healthy. But now that Deron Bland's healthy, Trayvon Diggs is out. And when Trayvon and Deron weren't there, you had Kalen Carson who was out. You had, Josh Butler. He is one of my favorite Jay Butlers. He gets hurt when he was starting to play well. Wanye Thomas is now hurt, who's provided a lot of playing time. And you just go and go and go. And I've missed Awesome Richards. I've missed Marquise Bell. I miss Aruarie. I've missed several guys who have just not been there and not been available. Well, now look what's happened. Obviously, Dak's still out. Obviously, DeMarcus Lawrence is making his way back. And you're going to miss out on Sam Williams, but Marshawn Nealon getting back in the rotation. DeMarcus Lawrence hoping to come back. Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland. Let's just get these guys healthy on the field at the same time. We haven't seen that before. You look at the offensive side of the ball, and you're seeing guys like TJ Bass and Brock Hoffman step up when their number is called and provide really good, valuable minutes at offensive linemen. And you see Brandon Cooks is back, and you see Luke Schoonmaker and Brevin Spanford is stepping up. And you see Cooper Rush is keeping Dallas in these games. Now that he's not playing the Philadelphia Eagles, now that he can throw the ball more than a couple yards down the field. And you're seeing Rico Dowdle put up his first career 100-yard game. But here's the key. Here's the key. Look at the schedule. When Dallas was losing all these games, do you know who they were playing? They were playing the Saints, who were hot. They played the Baltimore Ravens, who I have had in my top quarter rankings for quite some time. I don't know if I'll keep them there this week after they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles this weekend. But you had the Lions. Everyone's losing the Lions. You had the 49ers, who never matched up. The Cowboys never matched up well against San Francisco 49ers. You had the Atlanta Falcons, who were doing pretty well in the NFC South at the time. You had the Philadelphia Eagles. You had Houston Texans. I mean, these are 5 teams who either made the playoffs last year or are destined to make the playoffs this year. And then you end up defeating, beating the Giants, yeah, that's great and all. But you beat the Steelers, one of the very few teams to do that. And you beat the Commanders when they were really hot, and there wasn't much hope going into that game. And now all of a sudden you're sitting at 5-7. You're the 12th seed in the NFC, and I believe the Washington Commanders have the 7th seed right now in the NFC. Above Dallas is San Francisco, who again will miss Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason. The LA Rams, who have played pretty inconsistent. Arizona Cardinals, who usually collapse late. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who honestly are just fighting for their division with the Atlanta Falcons right now. And then you have the Washington Commanders, who have lost 3 of their last 4, give or take. And obviously I expect Green Bay to be up there. I expect Minnesota to be up there. But are you telling me that it is highly unlikely that the Dallas Cowboys finish this season 10-7? And the Commanders, if the Commanders finish 10-7, then that means Dallas, and if Dallas wins out, they hold the tiebreaker. So Washington, they could only win 2 more games this year. Dallas, look at their schedule ahead. Dallas has Cincinnati on Monday night. They have the Carolina Panthers on the road. They have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are ahead of them in the standings. And then you finish with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders. Let's think about these division games. They're toss-ups. They're 50-50s. But you got the Bengals, Panthers, and Buccaneers. That is a very favorable schedule to win 5 straight and give your team an 8-7 record heading into 2 pivotal division matchups. The Washington Commanders, they play the Saints. That's a win. But you play the Eagles, Eagles could win that game. The Falcons could win that game. And if Dallas were to beat the Washington Commanders the final week of the season, there you have it. There it is. The Dallas Cowboys would finish with a better record and a better position in the standings than the Washington Commanders. So don't tell me it's not possible. It's been bad. And yes, Jason, the host of 3 from Deep, he dropped his NBA podcast today at noon. Here we go. Cowboys fans breaking out geometry lessons, figuring out making the playoffs. There is geometry. There are things that need to go Dallas's way, but it's not as impossible as people think. And 2, the Giants are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, the only NFC team to be eliminated from the playoffs. But, Cowboys, they've had a brutal football season, but the Duke Blue Devils have not. I am so happy this is what it's going as. If you guys did not watch that Duke game this past weekend at Wake Forest, you guys, I was on the edge of my seat. I was at a convention all weekend, and then I see the Duke score, and now I'm glued to my phone. And Duke A came back down 17-10 going into the fourth quarter. It looked bleak. And then Malik Murphy leads a walk-off game-winning touchdown pass to Jordan Moore, ad-libs a route. And I'm just sitting here amazed at a team that, not even a team, a school. A school has been pigeonholed to being a basketball school. And now you got to look at Duke, and podcast me saying, take a seat with us, sir. He's acknowledging his 49ers, his Jason's Giants. I'm not going to sit down yet. It's been hard. It's been hard. But I think I'm standing up. I think I'm levitating over and hovering over my seat because Dallas is still in this. And Jason's saying Syracuse taking out number 6 Miami. Aaron and Chris are going to be here in a few minutes, talk about the biggest upsets, talk about some flag planting. Should that or should that not have happened? We're covering it all. We're covering it all today. But Duke is no longer just a basketball school. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, Cooper flag. But this Duke football team is playing with energy. They're playing with electricity. And I am so excited. So excited to see this team mature. Malik Murphy just being a sophomore. Manny Diaz, his first year coaching Duke, showing the resilience. And I'm just hoping, especially as we see more coaches get fired, more coaches get dismissed from their programs, I hope nobody comes and snags Manny Diaz from the team. And podcast me, mentioning Miami, he said he told y'all Cam ain't win that Heisman. Did not help the case. Let me be honest. Cam Ward is a phenomenal player. Cam Ward is probably the most electrifying player to wear the Miami Hurricanes jersey. Well, second, he's the most electrifying player aside from The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. But yeah, I still don't pin that on Cam Ward. And it stinks because college, it is accolade based, which means this ruins any shot of Cam Ward getting a Heisman. 25 of 36, 349 yards, 2 touchdowns on the road. I don't fault Cam Ward for that loss. Maybe you guys do. Maybe you guys do, and appreciate that. I know it caught it. I know Smitty caught it. But this is what college football is all about. Duke couldn't beat Miami and Cam Ward, but they have an opportunity to do something really special for a program that hasn't had much in terms of football to go on about. Like it's been really bleak, and it's been really bleak for App State, because in a few moments we're going to welcome in Chris and Aaron to talk our good old Appalachian State Mountaineers. I'm not going to parade or gloat or anything, but the team did need let's be honest, the team did need a new voice. Jason saying y'all have Danny Dimes. You know full and well, Jason, what that is like. You know full and well what that is like, having Danny Dimes on your team. But hey, you know, he did what he needed to in college, and now we're seeing Malik Murphy do his thing. And Malik Murphy is a much more talented quarterback than Daniel Jones was, or ever will be. And in addition, you guys are going to want to look for Malik Murphy. Maybe he's not a first-round pick. He still has a couple more years to develop and be the starter at Duke. But now he's outside the shadow of Quinn Ewers. He's outside of the shadow of Arch Manning, or honestly, the guy who was going to eclipse him as soon as he came to the school. So transferring from Texas to Duke has just brought electricity into this team, in addition to Manny Diaz. Now, before we leave Homer's house, I do want to just acknowledge my Thanksgiving, guys. We appreciate you all working with our content creators, allowing us to spend time with our families, friends, loved ones, doing relaxing things for our Thanksgiving holidays. One of the things I got to do was I got to go and watch the Miami Heat play the Charlotte Hornets. And if you guys have never... Okay, I'll go into a little conversation, and then I'll bring Chris and Aaron on. I was asked what I wanted for Christmas, and you know, it's really hard for me to put a list up on my phone and, you know, be like, oh, I want this gift, I want this gift, I want you to buy me this. It's really hard to do that for me, because I much prefer experiences and moments, and I had to experience a moment at a Heat Hornets game. And so if you guys are, you know, wanting to know what to do for Christmas or the holidays, give someone an experience, and those memories will last a lifetime. Got to watch the Heat Hornets play live in probably the best seats I've ever had. Got to go WrestleCade with my dad. That I'll cover more on, you know, a later episode this week, probably on the Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast. But guys, it's time. It's time, because I got two guys who begged, and they didn't really have to beg. It was an immediate yes, to talk about Black Monday in college football. We've already experienced Black Friday. Hope you got all your gifts in, but now it's Black Monday. People did lose their jobs. We're going to be sensitive to that, but we do want to look forward to what's next for these programs. And honestly, it felt like some of these moves needed to happen. So first things first, I'm going to bring in the host of Dugout Debrief. He's a West Virginia fan, so he's in the same boat as myself. Please welcome Chris DeLuca. Chris, I appreciate you, my friend.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about, you know, West Virginia moving on from Neil Brown, as well as the NFL game we got tonight too.
Oh my goodness, dude. And I'm glad you reminded me there's an NFL game tonight. You did a great job covering some of the NFL talk last night with Shane Smith, who's been in the comments, and then this guy who hosts the Gridiron Address has put a lot of stuff into that. We're welcoming in Aaron Schneider, who is probably just as happy as I am for the dismissal and the direction App State is moving now.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like you said, I mean, people, like, a man lost his job, like he's going to have to move his family, and it sucks for them. By all accounts, Shawn Clark was a great person, but they just had to move on from him. He wasn't good enough. App State was supposed to be a team contending for the Sun Belt. They were preseason favorites to win it and possibly even be the Group of 5 berth in the playoff, and they fell drastically short of that. So it was time to move on.
It was time to move on, and I'm glad you phrased it like that. Derek, hello, happy Monday to you. You did miss me at WrestleCade. I was there all 3 days. If you saw me, like 4 Sides of the Ring did, I'll post that on socials later, either this evening or tomorrow. I have a really busy night ahead of me because we'll be recording Dad and the Boys with my dad and then watching Monday Night Raw and then hopping on the nightcap with Mouthing Off with Mike later tonight. So I got a huge busy day. Podcast Mini, Christmas Talking Stuffers idea, getting Matt Eberflus a digital watch, who was also fired after this week's. And I didn't even put that in the rundown because so much has happened right here. Chris, the news broke about West Virginia's coach Neil Brown, for starters. What was your reaction to, again, not a person losing their job, but how was your reaction to the direction West Virginia is moving now?
Well, I mean, again, I'm not surprised. And, I've mentioned this before, that he was genuinely a good person from what I've heard and seen, but his play call and development and recruiting strategy were just not up to Power 5 standards. You never cheer someone losing their job, but I just don't think where we were as a team this year was where we needed to be. I mean, we beat UNC in the Dukes Mayo Bowl last year. We were, I think, a 9-win team. And then this year we just continuously fell short. And the big issue that I saw with Coach Brown was the player development. You look at a guy like Garrett Green, who got offers from Ole Miss, TCU, and Georgia Tech, but chose West Virginia. He was the 99th ranked prospect coming out of Florida. Last year, he had 2,406 passing yards with a 141.7 QBR. This year, he fell down to 1,972 passing yards with 128 QBR. Touchdown interception ratio last year, 16-4. This year, 13-11. And he went from being one of probably a top 5 quarterback in the Big 12 to another Jared Dagey. So overall, I think the direction that West Virginia is taking is we don't know it yet because we don't know what we're going to go for. Chad Scott is going to be our temporary interim for the bowl game that we have. But after that blowout to TCU, we're going to have to be doing something. It depends. Are we going to go with Jimbo Fisher? Are we going to go with Penn State's OC? It's hard to tell right now, but I can tell you what is in the present, but the future is still a little bit cloudy for my Mountaineers.
And it's interesting because App wasn't bowl eligible, and they went ahead and dismissed Shawn Clark. But Chris, like your team, dismissed the coach before bowl. I feel really weird about that when we're having coaching changes before these bowl games. It doesn't sit well with me.
Well, it takes the legitimacy of the bowl away too. Like I will admit to you guys, obviously we're not going to have some great New Year's Day bowl or anything, but I mean, it's a bowl game is a bowl game. And there's a lot of people that are looking to transfer out because of our performance. The biggest one is Jaheim White, who's only a sophomore. He's supposed to be CJ Donaldson's successor as a running back. And, I think that we're going to lose a lot of players this year because of our performance. Going into the Baylor game, we were technically still in contention to win the Big 12 or make the Big 12 championship technically. And then we lost to Baylor and I have never seen the Mountaineers give up the way that they did in that Texas Tech game. It was sickening to watch.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Neil Brown fired from West Virginia. I believe his record at the school was 37-35. So
and only 3 wins over top 25.
Yeah, he hovered around 500. Somebody who hasn't hovered around 500 is Chicago Bears coach Matt Eberflus. Matt Eberflus coached that game like he had turkey in the oven that he forgot about. Shout out our guys over at True Code Sports Talk. That honestly still to this day, one of my favorite interviews I was a part of. And just I'm usually the guy who's asking the questions, but when he started asking me the questions, I had a lot of fun. So if you haven't, go check that out. Aaron, Shawn Clark is gone. I saw it coming, especially with a program that prides itself on getting to these bowl games and, having Sun Belt championships. It's just, it's crazy to think he lasted as long as he did, but they did give him, the entire season to pull something out, but he just couldn't do it. Why do you think he couldn't?
That's a great question. I think I feel like what it is same issue that West Virginia is having, player development. Like, App State's had some solid recruiting classes for a Group of 5 school, but I just don't think these players have panned out like we would have hoped. We saw a regression from Joey Aguilar this season as well. Last year, he was setting program records for, I believe it was passing yards and passing touchdowns in a single season. So we were expecting to see more of that from Joey Aguilar, but we saw decision-making that was night and day from last season. Way more interceptions, just smart throws, missing some long balls that we didn't see him miss last season. So I think it's a mix of players not developing how we would have liked them to develop and a drop-off in quarterback play. And also I feel like the running back room has been mismanaged. They tried to mix in too many guys. It felt like there's a clear, 2-3 guys that were going to be able to move the ball well. I think Kanye Roberts, before he got hurt, would have been that guy. Mikael Haywood and Amani Marshall. And as much as I love Anderson Castle, he shouldn't be getting like the bulk of the carries. That's just not someone that's going to be your lead running back. He's great in certain situations, short yardage, goal line, because the guy can run people over. But mismanagement of the running back room was another big issue that we had this season.
And I totally agree. And I kept this comment up too, because Jason makes a fantastic point. Like he made a couple on the 3 from Deep podcast earlier this afternoon that's available on demand through Boom Broadcasting's YouTube channel, saying college coaching is not just X's and O's anymore. You better get transfer guys and NIL money, more like an NFL GM job. The game's obviously changing. Guys like Nick Saban have, bowed out because they've seen this transition from how they originally managed their team and their day-to-day operations. I think this is why West Virginia and App State struggled, because if you're not going to attack the transfer portal, look at Duke's basketball team. I mean, they've attacked it with going out and getting Malik Brown from Syracuse, go and get, Gillis from Purdue. Like, they're going to get guys. Duke's football team, Malik Murphy from Texas. And if you're not going to go and utilize the transfer portal and adapt, you're going to find yourself like Neil Brown. You're going to find yourself like Shawn Clark, when you could have thrived 10, 15 years ago, and now it's not in the cards anymore. I didn't put this on the rundown, and I apologize for that. But I know all 3 of us have thoughts on another coach who was fired on Black Friday, and that was Chicago coach Matt Eberflus. He's been brought up a few times in the comments, so I want to acknowledge these comments. Christmas stocking stuffers, get Matt Eberflus a watch. The turkey comment in the oven. Chris, I kid you not. When he first, I understand, like, coaches, they're supposed to manage the clock. They're supposed to manage the game. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes they do something, they make a decision, and it just doesn't work out. But when he doubled down at that press conference saying, I made the right call and I would do it again, he basically signed, hey, I want out. Like, how do you do that, Chris? It makes no sense.
I mean, I don't understand his logic. The only thing that I could possibly imagine is he wanted to run more clock to avoid Detroit having the ball longer. Like, I get, like, wanting to run the clock a little bit, but the thing is you don't at the same time, because what if you get a sack? What if you get a holding penalty? That was arguably, and we talked about this in the Gridiron Address briefly last night, Aaron Shannon and I, that was arguably the worst clock management I think I've ever seen. I mean, especially in the NFL. Like, you don't see that in the NFL. You don't see that in D1, D2, D3. You don't see that in high school. That is Pee Wee level clock management failure. And doubling down on that, made it even worse. I get wanting to stay behind your gut, but at that point, you might as well have just said, I'm not going to. I mean, I think he just forgot he had a timeout. I honestly think so.
It probably
Like,
common sense coach in the NFL's gone too worried about the analytics. Aaron, I'm still, and Chris, I've tried to wrap my head around
same.
it. And Aaron, I don't think I can.
It's just mind-boggling. The fact that he doubled down, like you said, just makes it so much worse. I feel like that had to have played a legitimate factor in why he got fired, is the fact that he didn't even admit to his mistake. It's just absolutely ridiculous. You gotta own up and say, hey, I messed up at a certain point. You can't double down on something that was so blatantly stupid that everyone can see it except for Matt Eberflus, apparently.
And here's the way I would have handled it. Tell me if I'm in pocket or out pocket. Go to the press conference. You're obviously going to be asked and be like, hey, this loss was on me. I should have managed that game better. It will not happen again. Our players played really hard. They deserve to win, and I let them down. It's not going to happen next week. Chris, in pocket or out pocket for that?
I think it's in pocket. I mean, there's not much you can really do when you mess up to that level, and you got to take accountability as a head coach. And yeah, I mean, that is actually exactly right. Like Jason's comment, I think summarized this entire thing is I think he was mentally checked out probably 3 weeks ago. I mean, I think he was mentally checked out after Tyreek Stevenson did arguably the funniest thing I think I've ever seen in the NFL. Like, which again, there's no way you recover from that as a team for that whole year. Like that was just tragic. And then this was tragic, and it's the Bears, man. But on the bright side, they have a quarterback. I think for the first time, I mean, I'm not going to say Jim McMahon or Jay Cutler were good quarterbacks, but for the first time since the two of them, they at least have a quarterback. So that's bright at least for them.
I feel so bad for Caleb right now. I feel so bad. I mean, again, that Washington game, you can look at their past 3 weeks with Green Bay and Minnesota and Detroit, their NFC North rivals. I mean, this could have easily been, instead of 4-8, they could be 7-5 and pushing for that wild card spot. But it just wasn't happening. Jason saying, like, Doug Pearson's fired, just has not done a bonehead move yet. Yeah. Honestly, yeah, they're biding their time. Podcast me, it doesn't help when you're riding a losing streak and then you mismanage the clock. Chicago has lost 6 straight. I mentioned those 3 NFC North games were back to back to back. But this all started with that Washington Commanders game. I mean, that Washington Commanders game broke a 3-game win streak. It would have been 4. And then they had subsequent losses to the Cardinals, pretty bad, only putting up 3 points against the Patriots and then those NFC North rivals. And it doesn't get easier because they'll play all 3 of those NFC North rivals again before the end of the year, and they'll have a road game against San Francisco this upcoming week, and then a little later the day after Christmas against the Seattle Seahawks. So that's going to be good. Zach Taylor sliding in the DMs right now.
Yeah.
Aaron, could he be the next one out?
I definitely. I feel like they're going to give him till the end of the season, though. Like him and Doug Peterson, it feels like, especially with Peterson, that he should have been fired a while ago. But there's often not much of a point in having an interim head coach because they almost never actually get the job aside from Antonio Pierce. But I get them just riding out the season with their head coach, but Zach Taylor, Doug Peterson are definitely gone. I don't know if I see either one of them being fired during the season, though, because we're in the latter quarter now. Season's winding down. There's really hardly a point in firing your head coach at this spot in the season.
Wow. And by the way, Aaron, I agree, unless there's something like catastrophic or something. Sometimes it is the better option to just let a coach ride out. Drew Coat Sports Talk. This is why we do lives, by the way. We have a rundown. I try to prepare my guests as best as I can, but we're all sports fans. We're all football fans. We all have opinions. And we do these lives because we're like, hey, what do you guys want to talk about? And Drew Coat Sports Talk brings up a really good question. Anyone else getting the feeling Lincoln Riley is going to be on the Chicago Bears radar? Reuniting Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams? Chris, would that be a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. That's actually kind of funny because I mean, Drew Code Sports Talk bringing that up is fantastic because I didn't actually think about that until now. That's why you're seeing that facial expression when he said that, because I was like, a lot of that clicked together for me. And especially with his mind, I think, with it, coaching Caleb Williams at once, that would work out. And additionally to that, I think that he could be NFL ready. I mean, we saw what he did at Oklahoma. He took him to the college football playoff multiple times. Obviously, his time with USC was only 1 year with Caleb, but yeah, I could definitely see that. I could definitely see that working. And I mean, I don't think he's going to stay at USC much longer. I don't think USC has got a very bright future. And to be honest with you guys,
and USC quarterback transferring out as well. Aaron, we're getting some comments in. Coaches will always get the end of the season pink slip unless they completely lose the locker room. Agreed. Podcast me, Ben Johnson's the top guy for literally every other team. But Lincoln Riley as a fit makes sense. 100%. Jason agrees with Drew Code Sports Talk about Lincoln Riley. How many times did big name college coaches last in the NFL?
Pete Carroll,
Jim Harbaugh. Those are the two I have strong opinions for. Jim Harbaugh and Pete Carroll.
Yeah, it's not something you see happen a lot because, I mean, look, we saw arguably the best college coach of all time in Nick Saban not stick around. So it's clearly a different game that takes a lot. And to a lesser extent, we saw Matt Rule make the jump. He was a solid college coach. He turned Temple around, got them looking like a functional football program, went to Carolina and absolutely destroyed that team. They looked like crap. And he's got Nebraska not looking too bad. True freshman Dylan Raiola, who I think is only going to get better. Nebraska's on the up and up. But to the point about Kingsbury in Chicago, I'm not too sold on it. Yes, he's familiar with Caleb Williams, but we saw him as an NFL head coach already, and he wasn't. He was not good in Arizona. It did not go well for him there. I just don't know if it's time to give him another shot as a head coach just yet. I think maybe another season or two as the Commanders OC and get Jaden Daniels looking good and get that offense flowing consistently, and then maybe, but it's too soon right now for me to confidently give him another shot.
I didn't think about Kingsbury. I didn't think about Kingsbury, but Lincoln Riley, current USC head coach, could be good. Rick 8-Bit throwing out Urban Meyer, Matt Rule. Yeah, there's obviously those. But then you also have Jimmy Johnson back in the 90s. Made the transition really well. College football, NFL. Hey guys, I gotta get them in as much as I can right now. I gotta get them in. We're on a 2-game win streak.
Gotta get the 90s Cowboys in, Michael. Always have to.
Always have to. And apparently, college football players have to get their flag into the center of their rival's field. This happened this past week. Michigan and Ohio State were one of the few games who were putting their flag. If you guys, I'm a wrestling fan, so I like drama. I like entertainment. If you guys want to have 5 minutes of entertainment, just go on YouTube. Obviously, you're already on YouTube, where you should subscribe to Boom Broadcasting. But after the show, go look up this Michigan-Ohio State film that we're about to talk about now, because there was a huge fight. And people are like, yeah, this shows bad sportsmanship. I'm going to be honest. I don't think I'm out of pocket. I kind of like it. In this age where we've lost rivalries and we've lost feuds, I mean, I respected the Boston Celtics with Rajon Rondo, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, KG, Kendrick Perkins. Ray Allen was my second favorite player behind Dwayne Wade. I mean, I could have easily been a Boston fan. Like, there was that Boston-Miami rivalry when LeBron and Bosh came to South Beach. Like, we don't have those great rivalries in sports anymore. And so when stuff like this happens, I'm all for it, Aaron.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's got to happen. I also need to say Steve Sarkisian said something about Texas. They're not not going to let my players celebrate on their logo. And he did it to Michigan. So the guy just comes off as a massive hypocrite. Pick a side, man. Either stop him every game or let them plant the dang flag. It's ridiculous. But also, I just got to say, go blue. I mean, Ohio State, they handled that loss like absolute children. It is shameful, honestly, how they reacted. And Michigan players getting pepper sprayed, that's also ridiculous. I mean, just mind-boggling stuff. I genuinely don't understand. I'm going to have to quote a Michigan offensive lineman, Chris. I mentioned this, I believe, after we got off the Gridiron Address last night. He retweeted something about what he said when he committed to Michigan. He's like, yeah, I just want to kick Ohio State's blank every year. And he's done that. He has not lost to Ohio State as a Michigan football player. So you love to see that. Clearly, there's still guys who have a lot of fire for this rivalry, but I love to see it. It escalated a little too far, I think, with the pepper spray, but you can't be mad about seeing this type of energy in a rivalry game.
And our comment section is blowing up. I try to flash everyone. I try to get all the shout outs in. Podcast me, Rick 8-Bit, Jason, bringing up stuff. Rick 8-Bit saying he respected the Texas coach for getting his team off the A&M logo. And Aaron's like,
he's just a hypocrite. Like one or the other, man. It's just ridiculous. He's trying to take some kind of moral high ground that he just doesn't have.
Podcast me saying we've been reading his notes for quick hits that drops tomorrow at noon. That's its new time, noon on Tuesdays and Fridays. So we have noon coverage throughout the week, whether it's quick hits on Tuesdays, Fridays, whether it's 3 from Deep on Mondays, whether it's Sideline Savants on Wednesdays, whether it's Dugout Debrief on Thursdays. We got your noon lunch break covered, guys. Like it is a great time here. And Jason saying it happened in Dallas once too. Yeah, like receiving in. I mean, I wasn't old enough to watch that game and really feel that energy, but it's a rivalry, Chris. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm gonna go. I do understand Jason's point about how people can get injured, people can even worse. Like I do understand that. And I think when it's controlled, like I said, the Michigan one got a little bit too much. But when it's something like when NC State tried to plant their flag on Carolina's 50-yard line, that one was a little bit better because it was more controlled. And I do believe that the Michigan-Ohio State one got out of hand. That also just went on for too long. But at the same time, I said this. I mean, Aaron, you remember this when we were playing sports together back in the day. If you want to stop them from celebrating, beat them. And we got beat a lot, so we won't even talk about that.
I don't like to talk about it.
But overall, if you want to stop them from celebrating, you want to stop them from running up the score, beat them. But I'm going to be honest with you, I saw more fight from Ohio State over them trying to plant the flag on their big O, which is the amount of national championships that they have in my recent memory and probably will for the next 10 years, honestly.
As long as Ron Day's
I mean, thank you, Ohio State, for reminding us how many national titles you have, in the past few years, and will continue to have. But anyway, they put up more fight at the end than they did during the game. That was a hilariously bad performance by Ohio State. And again, overall, my point is you want to stop them, beat them during the game, beat them during the 4 quarters.
Wow. Chris went full nuclear. He brought up Ryan Day. There were some upsets this weekend. Ohio State getting upset by Michigan. Syracuse beating Miami that Jason brought up. South Carolina beating Clemson and dashing Clemson's ACC title game hopes. It was a crazy weekend. But, man, I think Ryan, I'm thinking he's meaning Ryan Day for Ohio State. Can't even go home anymore. That man had a family. I can just imagine podcast me being on here. That man had a family. He's like Heath Slater. I got kids.
Yeah, West Virginia legend, by the way, Heath Slater.
Oh, one man band, baby. I got to see him at WrestleCade. Podcast me saying, sorry, that's 2. We won't even tell him he misspelled 2. We're just giving podcast me a hard time. He's going to give me a hard time tomorrow anyway. So I'm just getting my shots in while I can, and he's serving them up on a silver platter. Ryan Day, he obviously, at least he's keeping count. He can count at least 1, 2, 3. Podcast Vinny, I appreciate you. You bring so much life to this. Like the lit lunch table, that's going to be tomorrow and Friday with quick hits. Brock Lesnar, he said something along the lines of he doesn't care about your kids. Just FYI. To anyone watching with kids, I care about your kids. Brock Lesnar does not. And Ohio State fans do not. When you're the coach and you could win every game on your schedule. You could probably even win a national title game, but if you're not beating Michigan back to back years, these seniors on Ohio State never beat Michigan. Now, you could say that was Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh's gone. All the talent's gone. This Michigan team, the way they stacked up against everybody else, this Michigan team was pathetic this year. But they came in 3 touchdown underdogs and went on the road and beat Ohio State to finish 7-5 and get probably a weird bowl game. Their quarterback couldn't even throw for 100 yards. And Ohio State with Will Howard, with Travion Henderson, with Emeka Egbuka, with all of these guys, couldn't get it done, which begs the question, Shawn Clark, Neil Brown, they're gone. Is there a scenario that in the next month or so, we see Ryan Day gone from Ohio State? Aaron, do you have any strong opinions on that?
Look, if he's not gone, they're shipping Chip Kelly off to, I don't know where, a farm upstate is where they're sending Chip Kelly. I mean, I don't understand how you play a defense where their best cornerback is out. You have arguably the best wide receiver room in the entire country, and you just halfback dive it up the middle against a defensive line that's loaded with NFL-ready talent, and your offensive line has been banged up all season. It's just baffling. On the drives where Ohio State was able to move the ball effectively, they were up-tempo, and they were pass-heavy on those drives, and they just abandoned it outside of the first possession, and then the end of the first half when they got that touchdown. I just don't understand. I mean, look, something's got to happen. I do think that a national championship is the only thing that can save Ryan Day, but he could honestly be gone if they don't look good in the college football playoff. And honestly, I want to see him stay there as a Michigan fan because clearly the guy cannot coach a game against the Michigan Wolverines. So I don't want to see him go. If I was an Ohio State fan, I would want that man gone as soon as possible.
And Ohio State fans are probably ruthless when it comes to this.
Well, they do not like Kyle McCord at all. They despise him. So I can only imagine they don't like Ryan Day.
And it's been tough. And Podcast Me and Jason still bringing the punchlines in the comment section. Chris, do you see a scenario where Ryan Day isn't the coach at Ohio State next year?
Objectively, I think it's a bad idea because again, the play call in the Michigan-Ohio State game was terrible. I don't necessarily think he's a terrible coach. Like, objectively, I think it's a bad idea simply because of all the recruits he's brought in. I mean, to the aforementioned, probably the best receiving room in the country, and all these recruits he's brought in, I think it would be a bad idea because regardless, coaching firings generally result in transfers, especially with bigger programs like that, because that's instability is bad for any program. I think if they're a first round exit in the college football playoff, I think it's entirely possible. But outside of now, I don't see them moving on from him unless it's an embarrassment. Like if they get matched up against like a mid to low level team that scooted in and they get annihilated. But they've not really impressed me this year. I mean, again, it's not 2014 anymore. And I just want to thank them every single home game that they have for reminding us how many national titles they have in the past 10 years right in their 50-yard line.
Chris, not holding anything back. Jason agreeing. Bingo. It depends on who he has coming in to play for him. And I'll go ahead and say, like, as bad as this loss looks for Ohio State, 4 consecutive losses under Ryan Day's watch. Jim Harbaugh gone. Michigan not good this year. All of this stuff. Michigan, Ohio State, like that rivalry, it doesn't matter how good the programs are. They're going to play each other close and tight. I don't think this was the biggest upset of the weekend. I mean, Jason mentioned Syracuse beating Miami and Cam Ward ruining his Heisman candidacy. South Carolina beating Clemson. Podcast me saying Ohio State getting cooked on the show kind of makes him smile. I thought I made you smile. Let's get that straight. I want clarification. I want to know. I want to know, Podcast Smitty, if I make you smile like Uncle Cracker song. Was Michigan the biggest upset of the week, Chris, or was it this South Carolina game? Because honestly, I think Syracuse upsetting Miami was just what?
I mean, I think when it comes to the difference in quality of teams, I have to say it's Michigan over Ohio State. But when it comes to long-term ripple effects in college football, I'm going to have to say Syracuse over Miami. I mean, Miami is a very vulnerable team because, I mean, this essentially like could have eliminated from college football playoff. But like, I mean, they're a very vulnerable team. Their secondary is terrible. And I mean, they were basically a shoo-in to get in the ACC championship. And now that what happens, you know? So I think long-term effect wise, that probably the Syracuse over Miami was bigger, but the difference in talent, I'd have to go Michigan over Ohio State.
Shane saying he doesn't want to lose his time slot. Hey, you'll keep the time slot if you want to, you know, bash Miami or bash Clemson. Jason, a former Ohio State coach and quarterback, beating a rival. Jason's a big Syracuse guy, so I know his answer is Syracuse beating Miami. He's got to be proud of his wins when he can get them. Aaron, what do you think was the biggest upset this weekend?
I mean, it's got to be Michigan, Ohio State. Like you said, Ohio State 3 touchdown favorites going into this. Everyone I talked to thought Ohio State was going to whoop Michigan, and Michigan's offense operates like a service academy offense. Davis Warren, I think he had 62 passing yards. Khalil Mullings had 32 carries. I think in total, Michigan had like 41, 42 carries on the game. I think one player had more than one reception. I think a tight end had 3 receptions for like 30-something yards, maybe 25 yards, and that was the leading receiver. So this offense has not looked good. Defense was banged up a little bit, still loaded with talent. And Ohio State, their offense is one of the best in the nation, and they just could not function properly. They tried to commit to the run game, and it backfired massively. I do have to agree with Chris. Syracuse beating Miami is definitely more significant for the college football landscape this season. You got to love to see Kyle McCord showing out and beating a really good Miami team. But, I mean, even if they're vulnerable after him getting chased out of Columbus like he did last season, to then show up for Syracuse and play as well as he has for them, it's good for him. Big win for the Syracuse Orange, but Michigan over Ohio State has to be the biggest upset by far.
So he's sticking with Michigan. Yeah, I could see it, especially with how bad Michigan was this year. But to be Ohio State, that probably like is their bowl game. Like no matter what else happens, that they at least be Ohio State. Podcast me, yeah, you might be wanting to lose your time slot saying SMU and Texas are playing in conference titles in their first year in a new conference. Texas is a good team. I fully expected Texas to be there. I don't think SMU should be in the ACC. It makes no sense why a Southern Methodist University located in Texas is playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference Championship. That's all I'm going to say. They are as far, they might even be closer to the Pacific Coast than they are to the Atlantic. So that is my piece on SMU even being in the ACC. But yeah, they're playing pretty good right now. So give them credit. But yeah, thanks for coming to the ACC where it makes absolutely no sense. But speaking of these upsets that could happen, Shannon, I'm right there with you. We hate it. Make the ACC great again. Okay, that wasn't a political dig at anybody. Just calm down. Just calm down. I want my ACC back to where it was. These upsets in college football were pretty great, but there would be no bigger upset this weekend than if Jameis Winston, the Cleveland Browns, tonight play the Denver Broncos. I believe it is in Denver. It is. Could Jameis Winston and the Browns at 3-8 go to Denver, who has done pretty well with rookie Bo Nix and Sean Payton? That combo has worked a lot better than Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. Can the Browns, who are 6-point underdogs, beat the AFC West Denver Broncos? Because let's be honest, they're trying to win it. But this is going to be our that aged well. Chris, who do you think wins, Broncos or the Browns?
I mean, I think the Broncos will probably win that by a mile high. I mean, Bo Nix has looked fantastic. Jameis Winston has also looked good. He's making a lot better ball decisions, pass decisions. We saw how he performed in the snow against my Steelers. It was pretty bad. It was good for him, bad for us. And I think Cleveland's offense is kind of getting in sync somewhat, but I think it's a little bit too little too late for them. I mean, some people were saying, last wild card seed. Absolutely not. Yeah, I definitely have Denver. I'm going to go Denver by, we'll say 2 scores. I mean, Cleveland will keep it kind of close. We'll say Denver by 2 scores.
He's saying Denver by 2 scores. Let's keep it close. Aaron,
2 scores isn't that crazy.
It's Bo Nix is looking good. I think Denver's going to get it done. And for Cleveland to pull off the upset and win, it's really going to come down to how Jameis Winston is playing. This season, it's a tale of 2 Jameses. You're either getting the 50 touchdowns in a season Jameis, or you're getting the 30 interceptions in a season Jameis. You don't know which you're going to get on the night, and I just cannot bet on that kind of inconsistency from the most important position on the field. I agree with Jason. Brown's got a puncher's chance. Bo Nix is looking really good, and Denver's got a great defense to boot. I'm going to say Broncos by 13.
You guys are both going double digits. Johnny Cleveland, a fan and a friend of the show. If he was on, he'd probably be agreeing with you, because he's hated what Cleveland's put out on the field so far. But Jason saying Browns puncher chance. Drew Code Sports Talk, he said, I'm not sure what the spread is, but I'm taking the over. Right now, the over is 41.5 points, and the spread, Denver is favored by 6 points. And Drew Code Sports Talk saying, give me the Broncos. Podcast Me saying, think of if Jameis Winston ran it. Oh, this is going to be a comment to read. Think of if Jameis Winston ran a daycare center. Your kid could either come home with a broken leg or master Mandarin Chinese. There's no middle ground.
That's a phenomenal way to put it. I could not have come up with that myself, but that's a great way to
only
illustrate
Podcast Committee could come up with that.
Only Podcast Smitty. And if you guys don't know, his icon on here is his quick hits announcement. We announced that way long ago. We're 5 months into Boom Broadcasting as of yesterday, so I appreciate all the love and support. We're inching closer and closer and closer to 500 subscribers. We're only 40 away. So if you guys are watching for the first time, hit that sub button. It supports guys like Aaron, Chris, Shannon, the rest of the team. And if you are, just shoot the link to somebody. Be like, hey, really enjoyed this episode. You guys should check this out. Give them your support. But quick hits. He talks about sports, but with a very comedic twist. And maybe we'll go to school tomorrow. Who knows? He might take us to school. He said he's been sitting on that one for weeks. And Jason saying that's some funny stuff. I agree. And Jason, another content creator for us, 3 from Deep NBA podcast. And so hopefully I'll be doing a lot today. Browns, Broncos, when everybody takes one team, it always turns out bad. But you know what? Let me go Denver. Why not? They need this win. They need to stay apace with the Chargers, who are dealing with some injuries. They need to, stay in that wild card race because they're not winning the AFC West from the Chiefs, who may be on the top quarter rankings tomorrow. They're 100% on there. Where they end up, who knows? I'll be talking about it tomorrow on Out Pocket when we're back. We might have some scheduled changes. We might jump on a few minutes earlier, so be sure to watch our social media channels for that. And be sure to watch Jason on 3 from Deep. Be sure to watch Podcast Me tomorrow, Quick Hits. Be sure to watch Chris DeLuca this Thursday on Dugout Debrief. And if you were too busy on Thanksgiving Day, first of all, shame on you. Just kidding. But second of all, Chris was the only person to drop an episode on Thanksgiving Day. So he had no days off. He killed it. If you guys haven't watched it, Blake Snell is now a Los Angeles Dodger who joined the World Series champions. Chris, as you can tell if you're watching our video feed, was very happy for that. And he was also a guest as well as Podcast Smitty on the Gridiron Address last night. I know we focused a lot more on the tonight's game for Monday Night Football and all the stuff happening in college football, as well as recapping some of the games that happened over the Thanksgiving break. So if you guys want a more full NFL recap from last night, that's where you're going to get the Gridiron Address, available on demand. It was live streamed just like Out Pocket was today, and it's available on demand through the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel. Well, guys, for Chris, for Aaron, for myself, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys for making us a part of your evening. I got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. I got to record Dad and the Boys with my father, dropping tomorrow at 3 p.m. talking about the Cowboys. I'm going to be on the nightcap tonight with Mouth Off with Mike talking WWE Monday Night Raw. In addition to the New Day 10-year celebration, do they break up? Do they mend the fences? Who knows? We'll get to talk about it late tonight. So, guys, I'm going to go rest my voice, and we can't wait to see you back here tomorrow on Out of Pocket. And with Jason's words, Boom Broadcasting, let's go.
Well, that's it. I really hope you enjoyed it. We had a ball making it. Thank you very much.